Cosmere can be a confusing place.
From allomancy to surge binding, there's a lot to look out for.
We're your hosts and escorts to the realms. I'm Griff.
And I'm Alex.
And this is the Silverlight Guide to the Cosmere.
Welcome back, bookworms.
Indeed.
Happy Hoidays.
Happy Hoidays.
It's been a while.
It has been.
It's been a while since you've been in the studio.
Yes, it has been. It's been a bit of a crazy holiday period. So,
and by studio I mean my media room.
Yes, you do. I know. I'm well aware.
Where the nerdy items of Studio Ghibli and Mario overlook us as we record.
I mean, to be fair, that is somewhat appropriate considering not necessarily in specific reference to Sanderson, but just our interests in general.
Absolutely. My neighbor Sanderson. Sanderson. All right, so because we're not giving away anything in the title, this is what this episode's going to be about.
Right.
Assuming we remember all of these things. We're going to talk about the Sanderson Box.
Yes.
Whose items I have not collected to present to you.
Maybe we should pause and you should do that.
All right. We're going to assume that we're going to pause and do that.
Yes.
Then we're going to talk about the state of the Sanderson, which, as we were discussing earlier, doesn't really have a whole lot extra from Dragonsteel. So we'll just touch on things. And then we'll talk about the miniatures and the state of the Stormlight Miniatures.
Right.
And potentially the game, the TTRPG.
Yes.
And then at the very end, we're going to do a little spoiler talk. I think there's a very juicy tidbit that happened during a live stream. And I'm not sure, not that we've done Who's That Shard in a long time.
No, we have not. We did somewhat abandon that bit.
Yeah, once I learned what virtuosity was.
I mean, to be fair, at that point, like when we only have one left, it does lose a little bit of its punch.
A little bit. So we're going to theorize on that. So we're calling this our Happy Hoidays, and that's great. So first up, Sanderson Box. Though it seemed like mere seconds to you, it was at least a minute for us to go gather the things from the Sanderson Box.
Indeed.
So, spoiler warning, this box contains a twist ending. What would the Year of Sanderson be without a surprise or two? Scan the QR code for a thank you from Brandon. So there is a QR code in the form of a book on the back of this insert. And now for the contents of the box. A Sanderson Curiosity. Celebrate the final finale. I can read. Celebrate the finale of the Year of Sanderson with this previously unpublished short story from Brandon's early days of writing.
Nice.
It's called Long Chills and Case Doe. And it is, as the foreword states from Brandon, it is about a detective using a bunch of noir tropes in the 2150s.
Yes, I could tell somewhat from the cover.
Yes.
That I do believe that indicates it very well.
Yes, so Sanderson really goes off the hook with it is very entertaining. It's a nice little short story.
I was about to say, it'd be funny, and I don't know if this works at all whatsoever, because obviously I have not read the story yet. If it would work in the realm of...
Blade Runner?
No, the Wizard's Guide to...
Oh, it might. Yeah, it does take place on Earth, so...
And we know that book is set in a futuristic Earth where they have access to alternate dimensions.
Yeah.
So... Anyway.
Yep. Finished it last night. Good little read.
Nice.
Writer's Notebook, featuring a note from Brandon, story prompts, and new end paper art from Randy Vargas. There are still stories to tell. Now it's your turn. So in there are little bits from his writing journal that you can see clear connections to Cosmere stories such as World Where Spores Rain from the Sky, so on and so forth. So I'm debating using that. It's currently in a valued place on my Sander shelf. It was a little more important on the Sander shelf when I didn't have these shadow boxes. I'm hoping to post pictures and link them in the guide, or link them in the doobly-doo for the podcast. We'll see.
Actually, so that's an interesting note.
What's the note?
A culture where everyone wears gloves and no one touches because skin-to-skin contact allows magic to be used. That was a feature that I still plan to have in my Mystic Regency one, because in Regency culture, that was pretty much the thing. At balls, everybody wears gloves, everybody wears covering clothing. Skin-to-skin contact is pretty much taboo in Regency culture, and I was going to have that be because there are... I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to call it yet, but something along the lines of fate marks, where people who touch, it can activate a fate mark, which it's somewhat predestined, like whether or not your fate mark will align with somebody else's. But if your fate marks are aligned and you touch skin, that means that you are tied together by fate in some fashion. It doesn't necessarily have to be romantic. You could end up being bitter enemies. You could end up being platonic allies. You could end up being lovers. Like it does not, but it does mean that at that point your fates are aligned and you will continue to run into each other. And so skin to skin contact is taboo, you know. Anyway, yeah, so that was something that I had. And
there is a series that I read on Amazon Kindle Unlimited, something or other, that was all about marked, and I believe he used the term fate marked as well.
Right.
Not that you can't, right? Because nothing, you know.
Oh, also only mages had fate mark. If you have a I'm not entirely sure again what I'm going to call the measurements, but if you only have a magic over a certain level, do you develop a fate mark? Most of the population does not have one.
Yeah.
That is not a risk for them, because again, the taboo of touching was really only applicable to the nobility. It was not something that in Regency era affected the rest of the population. Lower people were not held to that standard. So.
Yeah. So this fantasy series is very much that idea crossed with Sanderson.
Okay, interesting.
And I'd recommend it, except I don't know why I finished it. It was 5 books.
Okay.
And it was an epic fantasy. It wasn't long, but it was multiple characters in different regions, each of them marked in some way.
Okay, interesting.
And it was okay.
That's fine. Yeah, I mean, I will say that there are some aspects where I have been spoiled in certain ways for stories. And so, yeah, some things are ranked as okay to me. Like, I know that on horror, Magnus Archives has very much spoiled me on how, you know, whether or not I will consider horror well done or not. Because, I mean, Jonathan Sims is just
brilliant.
So, yeah, extremely brilliant when it comes to horror.
In a variety of ways.
Yeah.
But back to the Brando Sando box. No, you're fine. You're fine. So we also got Dragonsteel brand socks. Formal enough for dress shoes or casual enough for sandals. These socks are the epitome of versatility. Wear one, wear both, matched or not, but please don't use them as pasta strainers. And they're nice. They are woven pair brand, and they have the Dragonsteel logo, very good colors. And on the bottom of them, one sock says air on the side of, and the other says awesome. Nice.
So okay.
I've worn them a lot. It's those and the travel gear are the items that I am just planning to just use until they break.
That's fair.
Or maybe until just until they're about to break, and then I'll put them in a shadow box, and then
that makes sense. Yeah, put them on display.
Yeah. So, Cosmere character pin: surviving, thriving, and staying aliving. Straight from the mists of Luthadel and immortalized in enamel. Here's pin number 12. Kelsier.
Nice.
But they were all deceived, for in secret, a 13th pin was forged. So there's a secret bonus pin, and I am not terribly sorry for those of you who bought the Dragon Workshop wood pin holder for 12, and then they announced
The 13th secret one.
Well, they did announce the Spencer Mervyn.
Right, the four additional,
five additional,
or five.
one for each secret project plus Spencer.
I hope I got all 5.
Did you?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to go back and check.
Okay. Yes, they.
Oh no, I didn't get Spencer.
Okay.
Because I didn't care.
Well,
No offense to those who are fans of the Cytonic series.
yeah, she is an honorary Cosmere princess.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. So secret bonus pin, 4 secret novels, 1 author, and the greatest fans on earth. So we're in this box.
Nice.
As a final thank you gift for our full Year of Sanderson backers, we're ending the series 1 pin set where it all began, presenting pin number 000. And it is Sanderson with a Bridge 4 shirt, wearing a brown jacket, leaning on a stack of books, 4 of which are the colors of the secret projects.
Okay.
And then the 5th one is that other one that he wrote.
Gotcha.
So these just went on sale. The Stormlight and the Sanderson boxes just went on sale. I think they're definitely worth it.
I might have to, depending on what the office says.
Sure.
I might have to buy one of those boxes.
You might.
We'll see.
Yeah, definitely worth it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, if I only have to buy one out of the entire set, I'm not going to be too salty about it. Though I will probably contact them and see if I can get an additional one, because depending on anyway.
Right. Well, it should be. Ideally, it's returned to the sender.
Yeah, ideally.
I might
so
contact them.
I'll contact them and see if I can. If the office ends up not having it,
we'll swing by the office.
Yeah, and then anyway, that can all be worked out.
Sure. Okay, so other things that were delivered in December, because it's January and we're doing Happy Hoidays.
Yes.
I got my miniatures, my Stormlight miniatures.
Yes, you did. You got the
them
Stormlight miniature set.
the Thursday before Christmas, and it was very exciting.
I can imagine.
And they are amazing. I was missing an item. It seemed like a lot of people were just missing like things here and there.
That's unfortunate.
It is. I do need to contact customer service again because they haven't replied, or they might.
What were you missing, out of curiosity?
So it's not a big deal, and I actually feel bad for asking for it. I was missing the tall miniature, but I also got one in the Stormlight box.
Right.
Which is why I feel bad asking for it. But at the same time,
is it a different miniature though?
It's the same miniature.
Okay.
But I paid for it.
Right? No, that's fair. You did. Yeah. And so you probably should get what you paid for.
Right.
At least I will say, like, if that is the one that you're missing, luckily it's not as bad as people who are missing other miniatures potentially.
Definitely. I am not really complaining.
Right.
I am putting it out there that it was not a flawless process. I do think that Brotherwise Games did a really good job of updating the community when they did. There's in most of the world, there's still 100 to 300 sets left to go out in various places.
Okay.
But they are updating regularly. They sent a really long email with a bunch of praise from from various social medias. And I was like, this feels self-congratulatory.
A little bit.
But it was also at the same time nice to see how many people really did enjoy the miniatures.
Right.
So
I mean, I want them to do well because they are doing the Stormlight RPG.
They are also doing that Mistborn deck building game.
I was about to say, and ideally, and I don't know if Brandon Sanderson has any intention to do this, but I would like to see Brotherwise Games do other tabletop RPGs in the same style of the Stormlight one, because then we can have a unified Cosmere game potentially.
So that's definitely something that's on their mind. They are waiting to see where we're at with with the Stormlight one, and then for the Mistborn deck building game in Brotherwise's Discord a while ago, haven't been on it forever, they did answer some questions about what the deck building game will be, and it is very much Mistborn versus Mistborn fighting.
I mean, that makes sense.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
And they are considering, in the far future, asymmetric play with Verukami and Hemalurgy.
Okay, I could see that working.
So,
I mean, they did have... So this is going back a ways, but World of Warcraft actually had something similar where they had a World of Warcraft table or a card game, CCG.
Okay.
It wasn't a deck building game, admittedly. It was
Sure.
It was a collectible card game, but you had your one hero with like various actions and cards and that kind of thing. And they actually had what they called were raid decks, where multiple people with their own card, deck would go up against somebody playing the raid deck, which was like going on a raid mission in World of Warcraft.
sure.
And so I could kind of see that being something that would also come into play, where like somebody plays the First Lord and like some of his
The Lord Emperor. Yeah.
the Lord Emperor and Inquisitors.
Sure.
And other people play various other resistance members and
Sure.
things like that.
That'd
So
be neat.
yeah.
So if Brotherwise ever listens to this, that'd be great. And we'd love to have Johnny O'Neill on to interview him.
Absolutely. We could shoot him an email and see.
Well, I did,
Oh, okay.
and haven't heard back.
Gotcha.
But he did see our booth
True.
and
True, he
smile
did.
at us.
Yes.
So
and we also had the what was it? The Dragonsteel art director compliment our stickers.
Yep, Ben McSweeney. That's right.
Yeah, which was impressive.
Yep,
Slightly terrifying.
a little bit.
I did not realize how... I'm not going to even say I'm scared necessarily, though it is a little bit nerve-wracking. I did not expect to be... Because I've encountered this feeling a couple of times. But how nerve-wracking it can be to have somebody of... either somebody of high importance or a lot of people pay attention to you.
Okay.
Because I remember this was a while back, and I'm going to get into what it was. But I remember when I was on... I made a random comment on TikTok.
Okay.
And I ended up getting like 600 likes on the comment. And that's more attention than I've ever gotten on any social media,
Sure.
thing whatsoever. It was a little nerve-wracking to be like... I don't know. It was weirdly nerve-wracking to have all of these people being like, yes, I agree with you. I'm like, I don't know. It was a little weird.
Yeah.
Kind of like the, Ben McSweeney liking our art when he is the main art director for Dragonsteel. But I mean, also complimentary. Like, I'm glad that he enjoyed it. And
I think it's a strange feeling for sure.
Also, on that front, do you have a template for the stickers?
Yep.
Do you mind sending it to me?
Nope.
Okay, because I was thinking I could get into GIMP and see about making some additional characters. Well, whether or not we print them as stickers.
Sure.
I had some ideas for some character designs.
Okay.
So
Sure. I can do that. I have to charge my iPad.
that's fair.
Yeah, so where were we? Right. Stormlight Miniatures game, talked about that. Cool. Next up, State of the Sanderson. Again,
What was new apart from what they've announced at Dragonsteel Con?
I don't remember.
Okay.
And that probably means not a lot.
Yeah, I would assume as much.
I think,
'Cause
well, for those of you who don't go on YouTube and watch Brandon Sanderson's updates weekly, he is 100% done with Stormlight 5, and he is 100% done with the second revision, first 2.0 revision of Stormlight 5.
Okay.
So he will be working for 3 months on Stormlight 5 3.0, and then another 3 months on Stormlight 5 4.0, and then it will go to print.
I was about to say, at what point are we going to print? But okay, so after 4.0.
Yep.
Okay.
Which
So we'll have a new Sanderson book soonish. In about 6 months is when it's going to print.
yes, and then it will be ready at the convention.
Right.
December 6th.
Yes, December 6th.
Yep.
Yes.
Few months is not how I would choose to describe that.
I mean, okay, let me say this. Less than a year.
Only just.
It is still less than a year. My phrasing is not incorrect.
10 months and 20 days.
Yes.
Yes, that counts.
And I'm excited for that because that is probably a Dragonsteel that I'm going to look forward to a little bit more just because,
Sure.
again, no offense to the Cytonic fans. It was not a series that I ended up continuing or wanting to.
Sure.
Which is why I didn't pick up the Spensa pin because I don't hate Spensa by any means, but I don't consider her a Cosmere character.
Well,
I know
sure.
she's an honorary Cosmere princess.
Yeah,
whatever.
they debated Mervyn and Spensa as the Cosmere pin collection.
Yeah, to be fair, I picked up Mervyn just because I did have the book.
Right.
But I didn't plan to finish the Cytonic series, so I didn't feel like Spensa was a necessary addition to my pins.
Well, for all you Cytonic lovers, I have a cube in my Sanderson shelf dedicated to, well, technically at the moment it's Cytonic and Frugal Wizard, but it's mostly Cytonic.
That is fair.
So at least half of this podcast enjoys Skyward.
I still want to see more merch come out for the friggin' Steelheart series. I feel that is underrepresented.
You know, it's good to have things in life that we long for that never happen.
You know,
It keeps us motivated.
You can take your jaded, cynical point of view and stuff it, all right?
As somebody who has never read the Steelheart books, I will stuff it, not read them.
I will see if maybe I can get a question put forward for Sanderson at the next Dragonsteel Con and see if I can revive any love for the Steelheart series and whether or not that's going to get any more installments or merchandise attached to it, because I would like to see some Steelheart pins. Because I feel like that would be something they could do with relatively little work.
Right. Well, now they've shoehorned Spensa and Mervyn into the Cosmere character.
Hence why I was saying I was hoping to get some Steelheart characters, because since if they are working outside of the Cosmere, I think it'd be nice to get some. Also, Rhythmatist. It'd be nice to see some Rhythmatist pins out there.
Yeah, a lot of people like Rhythmatist.
And I know he had talked about, there was a little bit of conversation at Dragonsteel Con about a sequel to Rhythmatist potentially.
Yeah, far future.
Yeah, I mean, it's
maybe.
definitely not something that is even planned or confirmed, but he had talked about potentially reviving Rhythmatist, and I would like to see it because I feel like the first book definitely ended on a cliffhanger.
Right.
And it'd be nice. I know that it's not part of the Cosmere anymore, which is kind of a shame, but
Never was. I'm just kidding.
there was talk about it originally being part of the Cosmere.
Originally, yes.
But even then, I would still like to see a finality to the story presented.
Sure. I do remember now there was something in the state of the Sanderson that we need to talk about.
Okay, what is it?
He has a timeline for book releases
Okay.
for the next decade,
Okay.
and Stormlight 6 is at the end of that decade.
Holy shit.
Yep,
So we're not getting Stormlight 6 for another 10 years.
that is correct. Chances are it'll be sooner than that, and I may be exaggerating and it was 8 years, but it is
Still, it's a
it is
ways.
Stormlight this year, and then he'll write all of Ghost Bloods, and in between those being released, I think, and I'm liable to get this wrong, he's writing all of Ghost Bloods at once.
Oh, okay, so the entire trilogy of Ghost
Right.
Bloods at once.
Is what I understand. I could be wrong.
Okay.
And then it'll go next year, maybe the White Sand novelization.
Prose. Yeah, the White Sand prose version.
So he has to write that.
Okay, which I'm actually not upset about.
Sure.
I'm really looking forward to that because, never mind. My comments on White Sands are well known on this podcast.
Yes.
So, yes.
What I think, so White Sand and then Skyward Legacy.
Okay.
And then we go into the Mistborn
Era 4.
era. Well, I'm sorry, I'm talking about actual releases. So let's think about Dragonsteel Cons as the main release for the year.
Right.
White Sand next year.
Okay.
Skyward Legacy. No. Was it Skyward? I'm just going to pull it up.
Yeah, that might be best.
Because there are going to be little releases during the year.
Right. But we're talking about main novel focus for Dragonsteel Con.
He will write Horn Eater during his Mistborn.
Oh, okay.
Because he wants to have something to go back to Roshar with.
That's fair. So we're going to get Rock's story potentially.
Right. And I believe some video I watched reminded me that the King for a Day story about Lopin becoming the king while they got Elhokar out of the war camp is a potential story.
Okay. All right. That could be fun.
Could be fun. Where did I see a timeline? All right. For all of you listening to this, you're probably like, well, the timeline was in there. You're just not scrolling down far enough. There it is. All right. So here we go.
Okay.
December this year.
Right.
Winded Truth.
Right.
Spring next year. Skyward Legacy 1.
Okay.
December next year. White Sand novel, maybe Dark One.
Honestly, it'll be kind of cool to have a White Sand themed Dragonsteel Con.
That's right. That's right. Instead of being in the Sand Salt Palace, it will be in the White Sand National Park in New Mexico. All right. Spring 2026, Skyward Legacy 2, maybe. December that year, Skyward Legacy 3.
Okay, so that'll be another Skyward themed con.
Yes. So, yes. Okay. Ghostbloods 1, 2028.
Okay.
Then Elantris 2, summer of 29. Ghostbloods 2, December 29. Summer 30, Elantris 3. December 30, Ghostbloods 3.
Okay.
And then what I am expecting, though, is because of how he trained himself, and he mentioned this at Dragonsteel, he trained himself during COVID to bounce back and forth between projects.
Right.
That what is going to happen is that all of this is going to be truncated, and the releases might be those same dates. But what we're going to see is that Stormlight 6 will then come out 31. And it won't be I'm going to spend this year writing Stormlight 6. It will be Stormlight 6 is written.
Right.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then, damn, we're just making all sorts of noise with chords. We have Isaac Stewart and Dan Wells' Cosmere books that will sprinkle in releases here and there.
I might have to shift my cosplay idea for the Dragonsteel Con now.
To what?
Well, because I was going to do next year go as a Sandmaster.
Right.
But if we're going to actually have a Cosmere or a Dragonsteel Con centered around White Sand
Yes.
as the novelization.
Go as a Jedi this year.
And go as a Sandmaster next year.
Wear the exact same costume and go as a Sandmaster next year.
I mean, I could just go as a Sandmaster for both years.
No.
Okay.
Just kidding. Of course.
Let's see. So, I mean, it'd be hard. A Roshar cosplay would be a lot more involved, I think, than a Sandmaster one would.
Yep.
So I'm a little hesitant to try to do a Roshar one for this next upcoming Dragonsteel Con.
I agree. And that reminds me that I want to get the nice lady from Sanderson, the Cosmere of Sandersonian, and the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. Lord have mercy. I want to get her and Tala on to talk about cosplaying in the Cosmere.
Yeah, that would definitely work.
It'd be great. So look forward to that sometime this year.
But yeah, no, going as a Sandmaster, I think, is probably one of the less labor-intensive.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you could go meta, and you could just dress as the Sandman from Spider-Man. Because one of the best costumes last Dragonsteel was a Doug dressed as Quail Man.
This is true.
Yeah.
And I mean, Quail, yeah, that's definitely a deep cut.
It was. I almost lost my mind when I handed him a ticket to our event. All right. And what else is there to talk about for Happy Hoidays?
I don't think much, honestly. I think we've covered everything.
Yep.
Because the Sanderson box was the big one.
That was the big one.
Just because, and I'm kind of hoping that next year they'll do another Kickstarter, maybe just pin set type thing, because obviously this was pin set series 1.
Yeah.
And that's great and all, but that also implies that there's going to be a pin set series 2.
That does imply that.
And so I feel like I would like for there to be a guaranteed way to get all the pins.
Sure.
I think one of the things I liked about the boxes, apart from the ones at Dragonsteel Con, was that there was a guaranteed pin in every box. And so you weren't going to miss one. So long as you signed up for the Kickstarter, you weren't going to miss one.
Sure.
And so I do not want the pin set series 2 to be spread out over multiple things.
Yes.
For the fear of missing one.
Right.
Going as a Sandmaster for the next con is also my way of getting the cosplay pin.
Oh, sure.
So.
Sure. Which there may be a second cosplay pin that's not Shalash.
Right. Which
is. This is one.
Right. Which
Shalash.
Is why I'm kind of hoping that next year will be still the original cosplay pin.
Probably.
I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
If it isn't, it isn't. And
yeah.
That's just what it is. But
I expect that Dragonsteel will, if they don't do a Kickstarter with pins in it, they will do a bundle at the store that will just be.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think they listen to a lot what fans want. And that is definitely.
Honestly, I think what I would love, and this is a tangent, I'm not going to lie, but what else do we do on this podcast?
We talk about Brandon Sanderson stuff.
Yeah, this is also Brandon Sanderson tangent.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know how I would do this. I don't think I could do this. I would like to get on the group, whatever panel, group, committee, whatever it is, that designs the games for the Sanderson or for the Dragonsteel cons.
Okay.
They had the games for the symbols and everything.
Yeah.
Because I think I have not been totally satisfied with the way they've been doing those games.
Okay.
And I feel like I could potentially recommend something that would be a bit more accessible for people.
Okay.
And I don't think I can get on that group, unfortunately. I don't know who actually designs the games for the cons.
I imagine it's the person in charge of the event in its totality.
Probably.
And yeah.
Because,
I mean, if a game position ever opens up at Dragonsteel, you can apply.
Yeah, because I feel like, and this is no offense to the people who are doing it now, but I feel like they are not, and maybe they're still finding their feet. I'm not going to lie. But I know that both the original game with the hats at
2022,
and then the different symbols and everything for 2023, plus the wood people, the woodworking one had their own game going on.
Right.
I feel they're a little too complicated. I think what they really need to do is focus on having one clue lead to another and being intentional on where they put their clues.
Okay.
Rather than at random booths.
Sure.
That's just my,
I see that. I think
because I think the symbol one, the token one at random booths was fine.
Sure.
The tokens that they asked us to hand out if anybody asked for them.
Right.
But the QR code one, I think, needs to be a lot more intentional.
I see your point. I also would fairly easily be able to argue they are taking preventative steps to stop people from only experiencing one part of the con by doing it randomly like that.
Well, and that's why I said, the token one being at random booths, I think is fine.
More or less, sort of. I see where you're coming from, and I do think there is a best of both worlds there. I think so. Operating the booth right? We want more people to come.
Right.
And I think they could very well be more intentional about where the specific items are placed, and then have a general thing that, okay, all of the content creators hand out this token.
Right.
But once you get the content creator token, if you're not interested in any of the other content creators, you're not going to go to their booths.
That's fair.
But what if they had a Delverai? And most of us did, actually.
Right.
Right. So, but they could be specific about clues and set it up beforehand with strategically placed, so they're still experiencing the whole con.
Right.
But they're being led here to here to here to here.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is like because they know which I mean, I don't know how long before the con you have to apply to be a booth.
I think about a month and a half was the cutoff date.
So I feel like they could probably write the clues pretty easily to lead people to.
Potentially. There are two things. One, no matter how well written the clue is, some people are going to get confused.
Yeah, that's natural for clues.
The other thing is the amount of effort and then the opportunity cost of, well, if you spend the time designing it if you're spending your time designing it this way, instead of doing a shotgun approach and just day of handing out, then you are taking away time that you could be working at other things.
Okay, here's a better thing.
Yeah.
Rather than intentionally placing the clues to lead from one to the other, create a sheet for people to mark shit off on.
Okay.
Because that's one thing that I saw a lot of people doing was they started writing down names that were in the clues.
Okay.
Because this year's Delverai was, what was it about? Somebody being... I don't remember, but it was a list of names, and they were trying to figure out like who was in danger or something like that.
Sure.
And I think when you sign up for the game, if they give you a sheet with all the names on it,
right,
so that you can start marking stuff off as you get the clues.
Yeah.
That would allow a lot of people to feel like they have finally gotten all the clues, guaranteed that they.
Yes. And so we went to Meow Wolf Grapevine, which is a art installation where you roam around.
Oh yes, I've seen things about this. Yes.
In there are QR codes, which QR codes are an infestation upon reality, but there are QR codes.
Right.
And there are like 28 of them. Okay. And I want to say that they were numbered, but they had a word and a symbol. And when you scan the QR code, it was texting. You texted a number, the specific code.
Okay.
Which was a word. And then you would get back a reply with an image of that same image that was, or something that related to that word.
Right.
And then when you left, there was one word that you did, and then it gave you a combined image of all the ones that you had found. And you could see which ones you were missing and something like that. So those ones were extraordinarily hidden. I think we only found 7 of 22.
Okay.
And then we looked online for the rest of them. Because
Fair. Yeah.
It cost money to get in. Something like that could be...
See, and that would actually work if they created a website, a mobile-friendly website.
Yeah.
Where you could register and go on.
Yeah.
And then have your own worksheet so that when you did the QR code, it would mark it off on the sheet itself. That would also be a way to do it, I think, rather than doing it by hand.
Sure.
Where or I mean, I'm sure that with that one, it registered the phone number that texted in
That's right.
the codes. And so it went off of your phone number and what you had found so far.
Yep.
That would also be a good way to do it.
Yeah.
I just think that it could be a little bit better organized than what they had.
Sure.
And I would like to suggest, I mean, maybe I can just find an email and suggest this stuff to them, because I would like to get into those games, but I also saw everybody struggling with the ones that were doing.
Yeah.
I remember the hat one being a struggle, and I remember people struggling with the QR codes for the most recent one with the Delverais.
Right.
And I feel like there are easier ways to do it than what they are currently doing.
Sure. That's fair.
So
I think it's time we move on to our spoilery speculation.
Yes.
This is going to potentially spoil
a lot.
a lot. We're going to be talking about potentially what the 16th shard is.
Yes.
So we're going to do spoilers.
Leave now.
Leave now or forever hold your peas. You know what struck me yesterday? I saw a video. I watched a video and a dude was planting peas. And I did not realize that you just put the peas in the ground. I don't know why I never connected those dots.
Oh, you didn't realize that peas were the seeds? For
I did not.
Oh,
and I
okay.
should have, because they come in the pod. They are the fruit.
Yes, they are the fruit. So therefore,
And
it's like the avocado pit. You can just plant an avocado pit in
Sure,
the ground,
sure.
and it will grow into a new avocado plant,
sort of.
assuming you water it. And
Well,
you know,
it needs an excessive amount of water to start.
yes, I know.
You should-
Avocados are one of those that is very water intensive.
Right. So a lot of people will kind of drill toothpicks into it and then hold it and put it in a pot and fill the pot to the brim with water, and then the toothpicks hold the seed at the top in the water. Like they hold, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
To
then
start it germinating.
Yeah.
and then
you put it in the
Yeah.
ground. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
because that makes sure that it is like engulfed in the water and absolutely getting what it needs. Then none of it is sinking elsewhere.
Yes.
That makes sense.
So, spoiler talk.
Yes.
There was a spoiler Q&A live stream
Yes.
in December for Kolos Head Munching Day,
yes.
which is Sanderson's birthday. Happy
Yes.
birthday, Brandon Sanderson. And during it, they started to ask a question from a user from somewhere. And the user was saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, Hoyt said that there are 3 great talents: art, invention, and intellect. And Sanderson, uncharacteristically in my opinion, got very loud, and he said, "Oh, you know what? We're not even going to finish that question. Yeah, I see what yep, you're smart. You're smart." Again, I'm paraphrasing.
Right.
But since Yumi and the Nightmare Painter came out, and we learned that virtuosity was a
One
shard,
of the shards, yes.
which was art, and Sanderson has confirmed that invention is
another shard.
then I immediately jumped to the conclusion that intellect
is the final
Is the
shard.
final shard. So it could be something other than intellect that is knowledge based, but it does vibe with what Sanderson said about one of the shards being smart enough to go hide.
Right. And so that would make a lot of sense for a shard of intellect
Yes.
to hide itself somewhere in the Cosmere to avoid odium.
Yep. Or autonomy.
Or autonomy, for that matter, yes.
Or whimsy.
Is Whimsy a confirmed antagonist?
No, but it's also not a confirmed protagonist, so...
I don't think any of the charms are confirmed protagonists.
Well, no, but Whimsy is
apart
currently
from
in a cat.
Harmony.
And cats do what they want, if I am to understand what cats do.
True. However, I wouldn't also necessarily categorize a cat as an antagonist.
If there's a cup on a table, the cat is an antagonist.
So are we talking about the cup on the table of the Cosmere?
The cup on the table of the Cosmere could be intellect.
Could be Roshar.
Could be Kelsier's long-lost brother. Not Marsh, the other one.
Okay, I was about to say. So the fact is, I don't believe that Whimsy is going to be an antagonist.
But no pushback on Kelsier's long-lost brother who's not Marsh.
This is true. I feel like that would be an interesting twist.
Okay, yeah.
However, I think that Harmony is really the only protagonist shard that we have so far. And even that's because of the way that shards work.
And how he is descending into discord.
Yes, because, harmony or preservation and ruin being... I've lost the word. Anyway, they don't work well together.
Yeah, opposites.
No, that wasn't the word I was looking for, but that's fine.
Antagonistic.
No, it starts with a C, I think.
Complicated.
No, but also true. Regardless, yeah, I mean,
combined.
Sazed being a protagonist is iffy because of the fact that preservation and ruin makes it hard for him to act in general.
Yeah.
Which I do agree with you. I think he is going to be split at some point.
I agree.
I think he's also going to end up with preservation. I think that somebody else is going to end up with ruin. That's just my personal opinion at the moment. However, I do believe that intellect, yes. I don't know if it will be named intellect per se.
Right.
However, I do believe that there is probably some shard out there that is specifically about gathering knowledge.
Yeah.
And that is how I think that we would separate it from invention.
Sure.
Because I could see both being applied, but I think that intellect is acquired knowledge where invention is applied knowledge.
Right.
And so that's how I would differentiate the two. Now, of course, Brandon Sanderson can do what he wants. I've already talked about the fact that I think that autonomy was misnamed. So therefore, I feel like also he could potentially go with something else on how intellect is separated from invention. But that is how I would have done it, were I the one in charge of the Cosmere.
Yeah. Do you think that Sanderson was inspired heavily by the UK for writing Mistborn?
What do you mean?
Well, over there they say Zed.
Oh my God. Why? I just could have gone with Canada as well.
Huh. Well, there you are. I think that is our episode.
I think so. I would be interested to see if intellect is the final shard, and I need to get a list now. I need to make up a new counterpart.
Yep, gotta have the counterparts.
Yes, because I still believe that that's a thing.
Well, I mean, virtuosity and intellect to me would be an easy kind of way to group them off as, people. Not that I believe this.
Right.
People like to see the arts and sciences or knowledge as separate.
This is true.
And our friend Nathaniel just put out a video on how fantasy helped him love real life.
Oh, interesting.
And he touches on this.
Right.
And I got the sense he was kind of grappling with how incorrect that dichotomy is.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's something I've realized. I mean, I feel like I've been creative and sciencey or knowledge based for a long time, but really grasping it as I've aged, and really using that to love life.
Yes, and I think that talks or touches on another thing that I've had an issue with the idea that emotion and logic are opposites or separate, and so somehow logic-based decision-making is superior to emotion-based decision-making, which I disagree with entirely.
Depends on the scenario.
I mean, yes, of course. I'm not saying that one is inherently superior than the other, but that's the point, is that there is not one that is inherently superior than the other. It is based on the scenario that you're looking at, on whether or not it works. And so, and I think that's a concept that is held by, like, if I ever see somebody that says that logic is always superior to emotion-based decision making, whatever, I count that as a mark of immaturity. I don't think that it is wrong to hold that as a young person. I think that is something that is a natural conclusion to come to until you mature further and realize that emotional intelligence is just as important as other forms of intelligence. And I think that this is very much the same thing, where I think because of its practicality, it is very easy to come to the conclusion that the sciences are more important than art-based accomplishments until you mature further and realize that both have their place.
Well, sure. And you did say the word importance, and that is I think a different discussion on just arts being opposite of
oh yeah,
kind
no,
of
that's true as well. Yes,
studiousness, because I mean, just surface level examples. How many hours of practicing painting does it take, and learning from those before? I don't want to say masters, but masters of the arts, and really, like, sure, some people have innate talent for that, but it's not, if they don't pursue the study of it, right? The people who are masters of it have studied it.
Yes, absolutely. Right? Well, and the fact that, I mean, you really can't separate them from.
You can't.
Like the point of view aspect of drawing, where you choose a horizon point and all angles.
It's incredibly mathematical.
Right, that's all mathematical. The fact color theory itself and composition of painting, that is all mathematical and science-based.
Right.
So, like, you can't separate the two.
And then in science, you know, I think most people have heard the words cancer research, cancer studies, so on and so forth. Just take a moment to think about how much creativity somebody has to have to create experiments in such a way that they can reliably determine whether the outcome was statistically significant. So, like, okay, you can knock out a gene in a mouse for its temperature receptors. Well, how are you going to tell that you did that?
Right, exactly.
Okay, we're going to put a mouse on something that gets hot, right? Sounds really simple, but if you're not thinking about it and being creative in that kind of way,
right, in that kind of
scientific discovery is not going to happen. So creativity,
and honestly, sometimes you can have the instinct of something working, and then you just need to figure out the methodology to come to.
Sure.
I know that I have approached some. I remember in school, I had approached some math problems, and I knew what the answer was. Like instinctively, I could look at the question, because a lot of the time it was like a word-based question or whatever, and I could be like, "Oh, the answer is going to be this." Now that didn't necessarily mean that I knew how to mathematically get to that answer.
Sure.
And that was an entirely different skill set. But sometimes you have to just have that instinct.
Sure.
Of you're like, okay, well, I know this will work. Now I have to hit the methodology of how do I get there?
Right.
And how do I prove it?
Sure.
You know, because I'm sure that Einstein's brain didn't work in such a way of like that the idea of relativity automatically formed itself in a very concise mathematically provable way in his brain.
No, probably not.
So, like, yeah, you do have to have that instinct, that almost artistic, instinctive thing of, okay, I know this will work. And then you also have to have the knowledge of how to get there.
Sure. Yeah. So, all of that to say, I would put virtuosity opposite of intellect.
See, I would not.
Okay.
Honestly, I kind of honestly want to put odium as the opposite to intellect. Because odium is all about passion.
Okay.
And like intense emotions, like emotion overriding pretty much anything else.
If we go with the name itself, it's about self-hatred.
Well, yes, but that's obviously clearly not.
Odium wants you to think it's about passions. And actually, Sanderson touched on this in one of the Q&As recently.
Okay, well, then I need to go and read the Q&As.
You do, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying Sanderson touched on this actually in a big way that is important, because something about the shards being, it was something along the lines of reforming the shards if Edelnasium had splintered again into different shards, right?
Right, yeah, I remember you saying like if the intent was different
there would be different
shards, yes.
And then somebody asked again about it, and he mentioned something about the way that the shards are perceived is important in a way.
Okay, interesting.
So Odium trying to make himself passion may be important.
Interesting.
I don't remember exactly what he said.
Right, and I need to go back and read the Q&As probably and to finalize my theory. But I could see Odium being the opposite of passion. I could also see Odium still being the opposite of a few other shards as well. So I'm not set on that necessarily. But Because I could honestly virtuosity being the opposite of invention, where it's artistic creativity versus practical creativity.
Sure.
As I said, I'm not set on that. I'm just saying that I could see it being done a few ways.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's some options there.
There are options.
But yeah, I think that's our show. And until next time, don't panic, world hoppers.
Life before death, strength before weakness, and Hoidays before destination.
Indeed.
The music you hear is Part 3, The Spirit, from Zavadilla's The Music of Elantris, produced by B-Roll Records. Available now on Apple Music, Spotify, and most music providers.
If you like what you hear and you want others to hear it as well, please leave a rate and review. It really helps us get more listeners.